Each one of us grows or passes through a different kind of life to reach wherever they get to reach. My guest is Mr. Olauna Emmanuel Orum. He is a member of the Public Service Commission, I beg your pardon. He's a lawyer and a teacher and a civil servant, having had a life not so easy. So how did he manage to make it to this kind of levels, having passed through whatever he's going to tell us? Don't miss the discussion as we start. Mr. Olauna, we are so glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
Who is Olauna, briefly in a sentence, to somebody watching us?
Olauna Emmanuel Orum is a son of a reverend, a late Reverend Fenekans Orum. Was Reverend Canon Fenekans Orum. He died in 2020 in the second bout of COVID. Okay. I'm a second born. I come in a family of 9, so I'm a second born. I grew up basically in the family of a reverend. Okay. And families of reverends are not the families that are very rich. We grow competing for virtually everything. It's a home that encourages and entertains all visitors. So that's the type of home I grew up in, sharing whatever little we had with everybody who came at home, especially in those days in the early 60s and the early 70s. That was the life I grew up with. I grew up in a poor family, but by the grace of God, I'm still alive. And I survived the effects of poverty to reach this level.
You are a product of a poor family?
Yes, I'm
But a teacher, a lawyer, now a civil servant, and now at the helm of the Commission for Civil Service,
yes.
Public Service.
Yes.
How do you make it to these heights? Let's start with your education.
I was educated in Kalaki. Kalaki is in the current Palisa district.
Yes.
From P1 up to P6. Then my father was transferred to Kabuangasi. There's a teacher training college there. I completed my primary in Kabuangasi Demonstration School. That was 1975. I went to Bukedi College, Kachonga. It is now in the Butaleja, but it was a prominent school in the entire Bukedi sub-region from 1976, and I finished my S4 1979, the year when the government of
Idi Amin was
overthrown. Yes. From there, my father didn't have enough money to take me to secondary,
so high school, senior 5.
S5, yes. So he proposed that I should branch off, and his intention of me branching off was not only to give him relief, but was that if I branched off and I came up, I could help him to educate some of my other siblings, my younger siblings. Okay. So I consented. I decided to go to Bishop Willis Teachers College, 1980 to 82. I completed in 82 successfully, and I was posted by the Ministry of Education then to a primary school currently in Mbale City. Then it was in Mbale Municipal Council. The school is called Nabionga. I taught for 3 years. Then I decided to sit HSC S6 as a private candidate. I was lucky that in Mbale there was what they call a private hall, which could allow people, private candidates, to register and sit examination. So I registered in the private hall in Mbale, and I sat and I passed.
Let us first understand that. What is private hall?
Private hall was a center for candidates who have not had an opportunity to study full-time in S5 and S6. Yes. Or those who wanted to repeat in case they failed in another school and they want to repeat. Maybe they don't have money to go full-time, so they decide to only spend money for registration. Okay. So I was in that group. We just paid money for examination, UNEB fees. It was good because if you don't have the money, you only pay examination fees. So I took advantage of those ones. Although I could go and get notes from the people who were in the neighboring schools.
So senior 5, senior 6 involves choosing a combination.
Choosing a combination.
So which combination did you choose, a senior 4 leaver?
After S4, I decided to choose history, economics, and divinity. because I thought those I can read on my own and understand. At first I wanted to do French because I'd done French at O level. I really had passion for French. But when I discovered that I would not get anybody to teach me French, because you can't teach yourself a language, I decided to drop French.
After senior 4, you went and trained as a teacher.
Yes.
You got a diploma. Why did you again go back for senior 5 and 6?
I went for senior 5 and 6 because, yes, there was a mature entry scheme in Makerere could admit people through mature age scheme. But I thought it was very difficult because mature age...
Not even the mature entry. As far as I know, if somebody has senior 4, then some other training of 2 years. It is weighed as equivalent to senior 5 and 6.
Yes.
Not so?
Yes.
So you already had this?
I had it.
Why again take the burden of going back to senior 5 and 6 to sit again for UNEB? Yet you already had a diploma with the 2 years.
It wasn't a diploma, it was a certificate.
Okay.
A certificate.
Okay.
I didn't have a combination that I could bank on and say I will use this subject and this subject to go and pursue further education at the university level. Because when you're in a grade 3 training college, you are doing professional subjects, foundations of education, you are doing those teaching practice, you are doing mathematics at elementary level, because you are going to impart it to the children in the primary. So I didn't have a serious combination that I thought I could do. That's why I took the hard way. And I decided to say, let me go and do history, economics, and divinity. Probably I can go to university and do a Bachelor of Arts. I can do social work and social administration. I could also do law. But those days, law, they were looking at people who have done literature, which I had not done. So that's why I decided to go in that way. Secondly, people who had not gone through HSC, they were asking you must have been out of school for about 3 years, 4 years. And I thought that was long. I didn't want to take long because I knew I had very many other obligations. I would want to marry, I would want to do A, B, C, D. So I thought by going the hard way, I would shorten the period of furthering my education. That's why I decided to do HSC as a private candidate just within 2 years after qualifying as a grade 3.
So you got sit for senior 6?
Yes, I said.
How successful were you?
I was successful. I got a C in economics, I got a D in history, and I got an O in divinity. And that is the time, 1985, when the then government was trying to expand Makerere. There's a time when Makerere had multi-campuses. She had a multi-campus in Kyambogo, a multi-campus in Akawa for BCom. Kyambogo was for teachers. There was another multi-campus in Kabanyoro for agriculture. And then Makerere was trying to expand to increase the numbers. So that time I didn't go to Makerere to do a bachelor's in a bachelor's degree. I missed by 0.8 that year, despite the fact that Makerere was expanding. But somehow I was able to go to Kyambogo. By then it was being phased from National Teachers College, Kyambogo, to Institute of Teacher Education. They used to call it ITEC. Actually, ITEC, I'm a pioneer student of the Institute of Teacher Education.
So where do you get the idea to join Kyambogo? And then what course were you given in Kyambogo anyway?
When I passed S6, I got 80 points then. This government admission board posted me to Kyambogo automatically to do a diploma now in business education.
Okay.
It is also, it was a diploma in education, but slightly to do business education. Those days the diploma in Kyambogo was 2 years, but specifically for business education, it was a 3.
Okay.
Business education included subjects like commerce, typing, account, principles of accounts, office practice. Those are the ones I did.
I've heard of that diploma.
Yes, and because there were very many subjects in that course, they stretched it to 3 years. And that's what prompted me again to go further. I was saying, I missed to go to Makerere by just 0.8. And my colleagues who went there for 3 years were coming out with the degree. And me, who was unlucky to go to Kyambogo to do a diploma in business education, I also took 3 years, but I was coming out with a diploma. So that's what happened. I completed my diploma, and I was posted to Toro Girls. Toro Girls is in the east, It is in Tororo. It is a girls' school.
Now as a secondary school teacher?
As a secondary school teacher. Now I upgraded. I moved from primary and now I went to secondary.
I'll take you back to the point where you were a primary school teacher.
Yes.
You had come from a poor family.
Yes.
By God's grace, you get your certificate with a job as a teacher on government payroll.
Yes.
What again motivated you to think that you had to go for more education, that you ended up in senior 5 to do senior 6? What was the motivation?
What motivated me at that time, I didn't think that primary teaching is a noble, good profession. You are respected by the students, by the pupils, you are respected by the parents, but I didn't think that it was the end of it. And the salary of a teacher by then, like it is now, wasn't adequate enough.
How much were you being paid?
I was getting, I remember my first salary was 800, and I was getting around 800. By then, 1980.
800,000?
800 shillings, less than 1,000. Yes.
Runana?
Yes, 800. That was my first salary. So that wasn't.
What would it be equivalent with in the current currency we have? Around 200,000?
Maybe not 200. I remember if you wanted to buy a bicycle.
Yes.
A bicycle then was 4,000 shillings. So if you wanted to buy a bicycle, then you'd have to save without using for 5 months. So you look at the salary that right now
of a bicycle
for 5 months to buy a bicycle.
Somebody told me a bicycle is around 500,000.
Yes,
now.
Yes, about 500,000.
So what you were earning was
5 times less.
An estimate of 100,000.
Yes, 100,000 shillings then.
Of
Yes.
today?
Yes, of today.
Okay. You had to pay rent and all that?
Yes, of course I was in town. You have to pay rent, you have to buy everything, food and utilities in the house, everything. Like the urban life is. The good thing with me was that I come from Kabuanga, it's not very far from Mbali, it's about 15 kilometers, 15, 20. So every weekend I would go home and I bring some food so that at least it takes us for some time. So I was not buying food. Most of the things I was buying, maybe beans, and if you wanted to eat some meat or fish, that's what we would buy. But when it came to dry ratios like rice, like millet, I would just come and stock. That would take us for some time. And probably that's why it was easy for us to survive. And we were saying with a number of people.
You are a son of a reverend.
Yes.
One would wonder, how do you talk about abject poverty in a reverend's house?
Reverends have always been poor people. You have never heard of an expression like that you are as poor as a church mouse?
Yeah, I thought they are talking about a mouse.
A mouse, yes. Because in the church there is nothing to eat. So even in church, in reverends' houses, there is little. Reverends get very little.
Why?
Because of you selfish Christians. You want to pay fragments, you want to pay the balance of what you bought from the newspapers. You go and buy matoke of 25,000, you pay 30 days.
Are you trying to tell us that the church has no arrangement for these men that serve God?
Now the church has come up with an arrangement of also paying salaries to their clergy. Those days they would say this is a good church. People would struggle to go to rich parishes, and the poor parishes would be rejected. But now they have streamlined it. All the money goes to the diocese. Then at the end of a month, then they say how much money do we have. Then they pay their reverends a uniform salary.
Okay.
But those days you only paid a little from what you have collected in your own parish. So it became. There was a lot of competition of running to rich parishes and rejecting poor. But now they have standardized it. Doesn't get much, but the little they get, it is shared among all the parishes in every diocese. At least that is what happens in the diocese, Bukit diocese where I come from. They try to collect the money and it goes to the diocese. And then at the end of the season, they distribute, they see what they have got, and they distribute among the lay readers. Is there a standard figure for a reverend and for a lay reader, or they distribute according to what the envelope has? No, there's a standard. There's a standard. It might be small, but it's a standard. It doesn't change from month to month. No, it is a standard. And since there are some months where you get more money, like Christmas season, Easter season, that's already the beginning of the year. Some good money is collected, and from there they try to distribute over the year on to their various
the men of God are paid a salary.
Yes. It sometimes they sometimes skip. My father, when he retired, he became a pensioner. But sometimes they could skip and take 2, 3, 4 months. Then they say, come and pick 6,000, something like that. Very small, very small. That's why we sons and daughters of a clergy, it is incumbent upon us to support our parents, because we know they went through a lot to bring us to where we are. Sometimes we struggle on our own, but now we can't say struggle on my own. Let me leave my old Mzee.
So on a weekly basis, how much money do you think Mzee could get in church every Sunday?
Every Sunday, no, it was less than 100,000. No, every Sunday, no, not every Sunday. Every month. Now eventually they streamlined where they.
No, I'm talking about the time when you were a child.
No, not the time when I was a small boy. No, it was so little. It was basically to buy a few utilities at home, some little food, and part of the school fees.
So where did you used to get this money to pay your school fees up to senior 4?
My father managed to take us through, because in the past there was this, I think the church in Canada was sponsoring some churches in the province of Uganda. We benefited some from the Canadian Anglican Church, something like that, where they would send the money, and then the church, the diocese, would try to help in paying school fees for some of us, the children of the clergy, who were in the bigger schools. I remember when I was growing, my elder brother, who went to Dr. Bote, Dr. Bote now called Boroboro, it is called Dr. Bote. And the Canadian government was getting, I think was paying about 60 shillings. The school fees was 350 to 450. The Canadian was coming in and paying about 60. Bukedi local government also had a contribution they were paying. Then the balance the parent would pay. Even me when I went to Bukedi College, I never benefited from the Canadian Anglican Church, but at least I benefited from Bukedi local government. From S2, our school fees in the Bukedi College was 450, but Bukedi local government was paying 250. So my father was only in a year. My father was only struggling with to pay 200 for a whole year.
Okay.
So from S1, Bukedi local government paid almost half of what we were supposed to pay in Bukedi College. That's how we managed to survive. And HSC, wherever you were, S5 and 6 was paid by your own district. Virtually every district in Uganda had that arrangement, that the parents would pay up to S4. S5 and S6, the local government would pay. Then when somebody went either to Makerere or to NTCs or UCs, government would pay. Now that was full government's responsibility, full 100%. But for secondary, the local government would come in, but primary was basically the responsibility of our parents. That's how we managed to scribble through to reach where we reached.
We now see a teacher, primary, with primary teaching training, and now secondary school training. How do you gain again? So give us a picture of Tororo Girls and how you found now this new life of teaching at secondary education.
Now,
more especially from earning 800 shillings, how much were you earning this side when you now went a level higher?
It wasn't much. I think we only moved to around 1,500. But in Tororo Girls, I stayed there for a very short period.
That is a double of what you were earning?
Yeah, it was almost double, yes. Actually, the reason why I went to Tororo Girls is not that I wanted to teach in Tororo Girls. I wanted to escape to Kenya, because that time it was profitable to go and teach in Kenya.
Okay.
So the intention was to go and be near the border and scan what is across the border the other side, then I will escape. But when I went to Tororo Girls, I went to Tororo Girls when I'd start mature entry now for Makerere. When I was finishing up in Chambogo, I sat mature. And you would sit somewhere in March, but the results come out in October because the academic year was starting in October. So when I finished in July, I was posted to Toro Girls. So I taught July, August and September.
So because you wanted to go to Kenya,
yes.
did you influence your posting to Toro Girls?
No, there were choices. You could indicate that I want to go to this area.
Okay.
You would say I want to go to this school or this school or this school.
So they posted
I chose Toro Girls because of the strategic.
Okay.
The strategic say I wanted to go to Kenya. Yes.
So you applied for mature entry in Makerere?
Yes, I applied. When I was finishing in Chambogo, I applied. So I went to teach my last teaching practice in Busoga College Mwiri, and the results came out. I passed. The posting came out when I was in Mwiri, Busoga College Mwiri, and I was posted to Toro Girls. But because Makerere still was taking time, I decided to report to Toro Girls, and I taught for 2-3 months. Then the results came out that Makerere had been admitted. So,
for what this time?
now I was leaving. Now that's the time I was beginning to depart from the teaching profession. Makerere admitted me for political science, social administration, and economics in my first year. Yes, because that's what I had applied for. And when they called me, I decided to wind up my activities in Toro Girls, and I went. Government was paying us. Those days, life in Makerere was good. You could stay in Makerere for the whole year because of the boom without going home. So I began my life, 1988. That's when I started. I was
studying your degree?
My degree course in Makerere. And I went through successfully, and 1991 I completed.
You graduated?
Yes, I graduated.
3 academic papers now?
Yes.
Our certificate in primary teaching?
Yes.
The diploma in business education?
Now I've got a Bachelor of Arts in social sciences. So when I finished, I joined the hospital as a hospital administrator.
Which hospital was that?
Soroti. Public service advertised, and I applied. I wanted to become I applied for 2 jobs: immigration officer and the hospital administration. So I preferred hospital administration as my first choice. And when the results came out, I passed, and they posted me to Soroti Hospital. So now I shifted from a person who was a primary teacher, secondary teacher. Now I shifted to hospital administrator.
How much were you being paid now?
Now the life was good. It was beginning to become better. I think I was getting about 300. When we began, I was getting about 350 to 400.
Wow.
As a hospital administrator.
From 1,500?
Yes. That was...
You started with 800 shillings?
800.
1,500 shillings?
Yes.
Now to 300,000?
Yes, 350.
Wow.
Yes.
Were you still greeting people around the village?
Yes, of course I was greeting, but of course it wasn't good enough, but at least it was compared to where I started from.
Yes, that is multiplication.
Yeah, the big strides had been made.
Yes.
Big strides had been. So I went and began as a hospital administrator in Soroti, and I was there for 4 years.
From Soroti where to?
From Soroti, I was again as a hospital administrator. They transferred me to Mbale. In Mbale, I was lucky. I was given accelerated promotion from hospital administrator. I jumped senior, and I became a principal hospital administrator. From there, the public service advertised for the position of principal assistant secretary. I was the principal hospital administrator. I applied, and they invited me for the interviews, and I passed the interviews. So I was redesignated from a principal hospital administrator to a principal assistant secretary. Now that's the line of the president's office. The line that starts with assistant secretary, senior assistant secretary, principal under secretary, and permanent secretary. So I crossed over now. I crossed over now from health. Now I came to president's office, and I was lucky.
Which year was that?
When I became a principal, 2006. But I became a hospital administrator in 1995.
Okay.
Yes.
So 2006, that's when you joined the mainstream
public service under president's office of principal assistant secretary. And I was posted to reside in Ministry of Water.
Okay.
And I served there for 2 years. I was transferred to Ministry of Trade here in the town center. And when I came to trade, I was lucky. The undersecretary I found there was retiring. So the moment I came after 2 months, my boss retired, and the Ministry of Public Service assigned me the duties of acting under secretary. And that's how I began. And 2 years after, I was confirmed as Undersecretary in 2010.
Substantive.
Yes, substantive, yes, substantive. And I served at that point in various ministries. I began with that very Ministry of Trade. I was transferred to Judicial Service Commission. I was transferred to Ministry of Lands. I was transferred finally to Ministry to Education Service Commission, where I retired from in 2020. 2020 is the year I completed my LLB, I told you. Because towards the end of my life in the service, I decided to enroll for...
Actually, as we take a break, let us end with that. A successful civil servant, I would say. How again do you choose to go for the degree in law, and for what?
I sat interviews twice for permanent secretary, and I wasn't successful.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to retire in the next few years, but I still felt in me that I was strong enough. I didn't want to go and sit at home and yet you are feeling very strong. I conceived that idea that if I did law, I can establish my own firm and become relevant for another 10 years
Okay.
as the energy goes down. And that's how the idea came. And since I was in Kampala here, I tried other universities and I followed IU, Islamic University in Uganda, being the nearest, and offering the evening program. I wanted Uganda Christian University. But when I went there, they told me they only have day. But I was still an undersecretary in the ministry, and they also wanted me during the day. I couldn't manage that one. It would mean that I would ask for leave without pay, and it wasn't making sense to me. So I decided to say, let me go to IU, and they admitted me in 2016. So every evening, by around 3 o'clock, your mind begins, you are now shifting gears from office work to go and mix with young boys and girls in IU.
Okay.
At first looked long, but once you have started, the next time I discovered...
You hit one semester, hit another.
Yes, and I was like,
2 years.
I never had any retake in any paper. So 4 years after, I graduated, 2020.
But the year you were retired.
That's the year I retired.
So you retired with a degree in law?
Yes, a degree in law, yes, LLB.
What do you think has been the biggest motivator all through this journey? From the Reverend's house, where you say even food at some point was not enough, to tables of decision makers in this country. What do you think has been the biggest factor, mover of things?
The English say that necessity is the mother of invention. When there is necessity, you will try to do everything to address what you lack. I also thought that happiness is a necessity. So because I wanted to be happy in the future, I had to do everything possible to try to create conditions then so that I can be happy and successful in the future. So the background that I came from created the necessary conditions for me. I'm also lucky that I don't drink alcohol. So I don't spend my evenings in those other bufundas, as you call them. So if I'm not tired, I'll do something meaningful. Maybe I'll read, maybe I'll do something that can help me in the future. So I also attribute my lack of drinking also to my success. But the most important thing is patience and not relenting on what you want.
In the story you have shared, you are not a patient man. I wouldn't say you're patient. Because for how long did you teach in the primary school in Bali?
3 years, 3 years.
That was too long actually.
Yes, it was long.
Then you went for your senior 6?
Yes. I went for senior 6 when I was teaching. Those 3 years.
Actually, in the 3 years you were studying?
Yes, I was studying.
That is not a patient person that would...
No, I understand.
Now, after senior 6, the results return and right away they called you to Chambok.
Yes.
You came and studied.
Yes.
From Chambok, before even the end of the diploma in Chambok, you were applying in Makerere.
Yes.
That is not a patient man. Makerere results returned and you were somewhere already. I don't call that patience.
The patience I was referring to is being patient with what you want, not giving up. Maybe that's the right word.
Probably.
I should have used. that I didn't give up on what I wanted. I knew the goal. I was seeing it at a certain level, but I didn't give up. So I kept looking on to that goal. I might have had some obstacles here and there. I might have had some failures here and there, but the good thing is that I kept my eye on the target. And that's the patience I was talking about.
At what point did you get a family? Your own family?
Yes, I got a family after graduation from Makerere.
Okay.
I graduated in 1991, but I wedded in 1995, 3 years.
Okay.
Because when I was at the campus, when I was a third year, that's when the girl I had married came as a first year. So I had to wait. She did agriculture. I had to wait for her to complete. Then I did. Then I conducted the wedding.
Because in your story, many people get challenges that stop their journeys when the family aspect now shows up. Did you avoid it throughout? Not until you realized
Yes,
that at least
I did. I could have. I had people admired when I was a grade 3, but I tried to resist because I knew if I had to begin the family then, probably I would have not moved far. Even when I was in Chambogo, I knew that if I admired somebody, I would go very far, and maybe it would handicap me. But also, I thought that if I was doing my grade 3 or diploma, if I tried to approach a lady who was the same class with me, she would not take me serious. First of all, she would think we are age mates, we are the same level. So I thought maybe, and I resisted the temptation of getting family attraction at that level. But when I went to campus, I said, no, I think the time is coming. And all my colleagues I was with at other levels had acquired the families, and they began getting children.
But for your case, you waited?
No, I waited, yes.
Among all these steps, is there any that was on plan, or every step gave birth to the other? You being going for senior 6 when you were teaching as a primary teacher. Then senior 6 takes you to Chambogo.
Yes.
From Chambogo, then Makerere.
Yes.
Makerere to the hospital. Did you have this in plan, that after this period I would want to have this? Did it happen as you wished, or every stage gave birth to the other?
No, it is not what I wished. Everybody would have wished to go straight.
Yes.
But for me, I used every opportunity I got and say, how do I capitalize on this opportunity? Then I would go to the next level. Then I would go that level. Then I would say, how do I use this opportunity? Then I would use that opportunity and then go to the next level. That one explains why I have several degrees, not because I want to go to school very much. No, when I was at a grade 3 level, my target was to complete. You complete, say, what do I want next? Then I say, I want to go to the next level. I wanted a degree, but unfortunately, it's the diploma that presented itself. So I completed that one. Then I finished that one, then I said, now let me go for a degree. Even when I finished the degree, that's what explains. When I was working in the hospital, I thought I should perfect my act as a hospital administrator. I applied for a master's in Makerere here. It was called Social Sector Planning and Management, a Master of Arts in Social Sector Planning and Management. Because I was looking at myself as a hospital administrator, and I was saying, how do I perfect my job as a hospital administrator? Now when I leave the hospital administration and I joined the mainstream public service as a principal assistant secretary, now I saw that social sector planning was not helping me as that I had done.
It was to be relevant.
Yes. So now when I reached this level, I came to Chambogo, to UMI, to say, now I want public administration and management. I began with a diploma first. Then when I finished the diploma, I said, why don't I perfect in my public administration and management? That's how I went ahead and pursued that master's in Uganda Management Institute.
Wait, so there is a master's somewhere as well?
There are 3.
You told us about the certificate in education, primary teaching.
Yes.
The diploma in business education.
Yes.
Then social sciences and the law that you have just attained.
Yes. But before the law, when I joined the hospital administration,
yes,
I did a master's in social sector planning and management
At Makerere University?
At Makerere, yes. Because we had joined the hospital, they were making us relevant. We first began with a diploma in health management.
Okay.
I did it in 1998, 99. Then when I finished it, I thought that was not enough. That's when I applied to Makerere for a social sector planning and management, because I wanted to make myself more relevant in the hospital. When I crossed over from hospital to president's office as a principal assistant secretary, now I thought the other one was the person that wasn't going to help me here. That's why I said, let me also first get a diploma in public administration in UMI, Uganda Management Institute. And when I finished, then the urge came and said, why don't I perfect it and go and do a master's in the management studies of Uganda Management Institute.
So you have 2 master's degrees?
3. Then in 2011,
yes,
government of Uganda under DFID offered 30 places to do a master's in ESAMI. ESAMI is Eastern Southern African Management Institute based in Arusha, but they have a branch here in Bombo. They asked us to apply for people who want to do a master's, an MBA. The president had directed that he wanted senior managers in the government to have business acumen in running government ministries on the same line with private. So they offered 30 people to do a master's in business administration. It was fully sponsored by government. So I applied and I was among the 30 people in 2011 who were successful. So I began it in 2012 here in Bombo, here as a summit. So that was an MBA. That was the last master's I did when I was in the government. So
you have 3 master's degrees?
Yes.
How have you found education as an adult? Because even your senior 5 and 6, you were already an adult, a working class man, a teacher. You came to Kyambogo as an adult already, a graduate with a certificate. You went to Makerere when you had just gone through 2 institutions, the Teachers Training College and Kyambogo.
Yes.
So you were already an adult with freshers.
Yes.
Doing a degree. Everywhere you have been an adult, a senior man in class with younger people. How have you found it?
The first Kyambogo and Makerere, I was 5 years older than the people I was studying with. The difference is small, you might not even notice.
Yes.
But what the most challenging one was when I was doing my degree in law in IU here. Actually, I was doing with the people, some of whom are fit to be my daughters and sons. And even recently, when I was doing LDC, the leader branch, I was with people, all of them, most of them,
way younger than you.
In fact, I could sit in class and say, can't I produce all of, and maybe the only 2 or 3 people I could not produce, but the rest of the people in the class were people I could easily produce. It was so humbling, and that one made me keep quiet, take a low profile, because I didn't want to argue. Sometimes you argue with them and you see that the argument is much better than you. So sometimes it is better to keep your ignorance. You keep quiet and keep your peace, so that somebody doesn't say, look at this muzei. So most of the time, I was taking a low profile.
Besides, working while studying.
While studying.
How challenging have you found that yourself?
Yes, it is so challenging, only that I've been lucky that I have got a very supportive partner. Sometimes most cases who understands. Sometimes they might not even have the money to run the home, then she comes in and runs the home. Sometimes you might not have the money to do 1 or 2 things, even pay tuition. And you know, these universities, there's a lot of photocopying, and sometimes you don't have all the money all the time. So I thank God that I have got a very supportive wife, especially these courses I've done in the last 5 years. Really, they have been there. If I'm to give them, I would give them to my wife, because she's the one who has been supporting me. Okay, sometimes she complains that when will you ever stop studying, especially when maybe he wants to discuss, there's something, there's a program, there's some development she wants me to discuss, then I'm telling her that I have an assignment to hand in tomorrow. That was, sometimes it irritates them, but that one's human really.
You see, I'm looking at education as an adult. Now, the challenges of having children who have to go back to school, but your bank slips are also ready yourself. The challenges.
Yes, that has been a challenge. Anybody who has had education in adulthood has gone through that challenge. Sometimes you sit and say, who do I send to school first? Do I send a son or the daughter, or I pay for myself? And being a parent, you pay for yourself last. You first say, let me pay for this one, let me pay for the children, let them go. Thank God that mine have always been in boarding schools. So it is only holidays where there is a lot of chaos at home. But during school time, the home is quiet. So it gives me the ample time and the environment to read. And
education is expensive. As a civil servant, how have you been managing your personal needs, the children, the family, then going to school with all those degrees that you have?
Yes, education is very expensive.
Yes.
But most of these ministries in government have got a component of education training for their staff. Some of them I could also benefit from. Some of the training component I could also benefit partly from that one, like all other staff in a particular ministry. So it wasn't basically coming from all of my resources, but I was also taking, because I was
taking advantage of some opportunities.
Some of opportunities, because I was perfecting and improving my skills to serve government better. So I also benefited from such arrangements from the ministry. But the bulk of it came from some of my savings.
There are people who are in offices already working, but you cannot convince them to go back to school for anything. Actually, somebody will tell you, no, 5 million for a diploma? No. I can start something here. Every week it will be giving me 100,000 or even more. With that kind of attitude, what would be your view to such a person?
Life is very dynamic. Let me give you an example. 1985, 86, 87.
Yes.
I was being trained to teach typewriting in the Institute of Teacher Education. Typewriting, and I was a very good teacher of typewriting. You can ask some of the girls I taught in Intro Girls. I could even put music so that you type on rhythm. That was what was in vogue. That was what was prevailing. But right now, recently, the Ministry of Education has even abolished typewriting as a subject in secondary school. Now, my colleagues who remained typewriting teachers, teaching office practice, which has also been removed, they are going to be laid redundant because they are not useful anymore, because they didn't upskill their skills. That's the reason why I've been in that way. That because life is very dynamic, you have to move in tandem with the changing trends of life. If I didn't, I would not even. Now you ask my colleagues who never went, they can't even know. But the best they do is maybe on the mobile phone. That's where they can do. But some have wanted to be relevant with some of the changing trend, because I don't want to just, life is not static. And because life is not static in any very profession, even if it was medicine, the people who finished medicine 30 years ago, people who finished law 30 years ago and have not improved their skills, those ones will be left out. Okay. So I didn't want to be
things evolve every year.
Every year. So it is only those who evolve with the changing times who will remain relevant in life, and that's what I wanted.
So you would advise all of us professionals in different fields, given the opportunity, to go back to school?
Yes, even you in your present job. Time will come when these other machines will be out of vogue. But if you kept upgrading yourself, you'll make yourself relevant at every level. Whatever changes, it catches up, or you catch up with it.
How about people who weigh education with investment and business?
Yes, now that's it. Yes, but because even education is an investment. Investing in education, depending on where you are looking, it is true, and I don't blame them. Neither do I begrudge them, because for them, they can also go in that area of business and they are successful. In life, what is important is success. And success doesn't come in one line.
Yes.
It comes in several lines.
Diverse.
You might go to business, you are successful. You go professional, you are successful. You go in the civil service in that area, you are successful. So you must be able to tell which line where do you have a passion? Do you have a passion in business, or you have a passion in professional growth, or you have a passion in academic growth? So, and I would advise everybody to look at where the passion is and follow that line, and keep changing with the changing times in that particular profession or in that particular line. That is when we shall be relevant.
There must be a child watching us. Probably he is a visitor in a home where there is a TV, a screen where he is watching us, coming from a very poor home. What kind of advice would you give that child?
My advice to that child, those children, is that in life we always get challenges right from childhood, but the challenges we get should not stop us from trying to move away from those challenges. Every time, and like somebody beginning to walk, a child beginning to walk, you walk and fall, but you never fall and remain. So in the same way, when adults, when like the children fall and stand, even as adults, when we get challenges, we should try to overcome those challenges, jump over them and move on. That's when life will be good. That's when at the end of the day, somebody will say, so and so is successful because you overcame challenges. Those successful people also got their challenges, but the beauty with them is that they try to overcome their challenges whenever they met them.
So you are now a lawyer.
Yes.
You even finished LDC.
Yes, I finished LDC.
What next?
I thought I would open up a chambers. That was my dream, so that law is like computer. If you don't practice it, you might forget it. I thought I would, on completion, I would continue and maybe establish a firm. But I was, by the grace of God, His Excellency the President appointed me as a member of the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
And it's a full-time job. But thank God again that in the commission, they also need the services of a lawyer. In the commission, we play judicial, half judicial services. We are lawyers. I mean, we are judges. We determine things. We discipline staff. People come and make petitions, and some of them come with the lawyers. So at least I'm going, although it will be on a smaller scale, but somehow I'm going to be practicing my law and sharpening my skills in law, even when I'm in the commission.
So does the law firm dream die there?
It will not die, because I will want to keep an eye there so that I keep relevant. Now that is my profession. I've left management. Now my new profession is law. So I don't want...
I'm now talking to a lawyer.
Yes, you're talking to a lawyer. I don't want my skills to die.
Okay.
I'll get my one leg there so that I can even go there over the weekend and say, let me see what you have done, and I read it through, and it keeps reminding me of which trend the law profession is going. But I'm also using it in the commission to try to guide here. If I find a problem, I have other colleagues who are lawyers. It is easy for me to say, I have this challenge, how do I overcome it? And they come in handy. Some of them are my lecturers who have lectured me at IU. Some of them have been lecturing me in LDC. So to me, those ones are, I'm keeping my tag on them. And in the process, I'm growing in the profession, even if I'm in the commission.
You have been in the education sector for long. What do you think can be added there to help people that maybe may go through it like yourself, or even the youngsters that we have who can pass through it straight but get to the success line like yourself?
The current generation of students is even lucky compared to the generation 20, 30 years ago. Because 20, 30 years ago, if you wanted to further your education, there were very few universities. It was probably Makerere. And if you are in Bale like I was, there was no online studies. You have to either leave that place and come and study here. But now there are very many universities in the country. The last time I was seeing there are about over 50 universities in the country. They have got their pegs in very many other parts. The people who are watching me cannot say that I have not been able to go to school because the university is only in Kampala. Every major town in Uganda has a branch of all these other universities. And the universities, depending on what you put in what you are studying, the universities add little. But if you have got the passion, you only come in to clarify areas where you don't. So they have that opportunity. There are very many universities across the country. Two, there are very many opportunities to study online. to study online. Just pay school fees, and every time maybe you have some data on your phone, and maybe every Saturday you are in class for 2-3 hours. They are lucky that they don't have an excuse. Maybe the only excuse is tuition, because the universities are also expensive. Because I know I'm paying school fees for my son and daughter at the university. You pay about 3-4 million shillings in a year. 1.5, 1.6 in one semester, something like that. But they have the opportunity to study online. They have the opportunity to study at the nearest branch of a particular university, unlike our parents and my contemporaries.
Your background, you actually said no one would want to study like the way I studied, but because of the poverty in my home is why I went through this. What would be your suggestion in as far as fighting poverty in Uganda is concerned?
Fighting poverty in Uganda lies in skilling ourselves. Skilling ourselves. We can skill ourselves in very many ways, and there are very many institutions that are providing skills. I want the young people to not to concentrate, not to think that the only way you are seen as successful is to have got a university degree. Very many have got university degrees, and they are struggling to find where to place themselves. Some of them have been coming backwards and say, why don't I get a skill in this area of hairdressing, a skill in a salon, a skill in something, so that I can live without necessarily getting a job, without necessarily struggling for a job in the government. So I would advise the young people who are listening to me that success comes in very many forms and doesn't come in only getting the degree. Success is you being happy. You can be happy by getting a skill, you are trained in that skill, and you can survive on that skill, something hands-on. That's the parting word I would love to leave with the young people who are watching me, both girls and boys.
We thank you so much, sir, for the time and the information we have shared.